wrap up the show today talking with an author. We've got Suzanne Montgomery joining us here on the Midday set to talk about her books and her writing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Delightful to have you. We've been having a nice chat as we've been waiting to talk, and you are an interesting and writer, and we'll talk about some of the stories you were just sharing with me. Let's talk first off about how you started writing and when you started writing.
Well, I really enjoyed writing when I was a child, and I was one of those kids, you know, like who had little notebooks, and I would write all these little stories about, in grade 1 it was mostly about Sister Mercedes coming for dinner because Sister Mercedes was a really cool nun. Anyways, later on, I wrote my first novella when I was in grade 6, and it was all of 18 pages, 6 chapters, and full of mistakes, but when you got to the end of the book, you really loved that little unicorn. Nice. And so anyways, I always kept that, and it went with me to university and everywhere else I went. You know, it sat amongst my textbooks. And anyways, so I ended up going to university and studying music and getting a master's degree in music, and eventually ended up teaching music ed. And anyways, after I had my children, and I had my children later on in life, I was like in my 40s. So after I had my children, we took some time off, or I took time off from teaching. And it was during that time that my father died. And anyways, when my father died, I suddenly found myself saying, I feel like writing a book. I feel like writing a book, and I couldn't understand why I was saying that. So anyway, several months later, I was cleaning the basement, and I found this very old box, and I looked inside the box, and there's all these old toys and my old pillow from my childhood, and I found all this old writing. And lo and behold, I had taken that little novella, and I guess I was trying to turn it into a real novel, and I had developed the first 4 chapters. And so anyways, I just threw it in the blue box, and about a day later, I thought, I should really go and see what I wrote. So I went and I pulled it out and had to dry it on the floor. And the next morning I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, a psychic dinosaur? This is fantastic. So anyways, about 5 days later, I started writing it. And within about 2 weeks, I had the first really bad draft. And I kept improving my writing and improving, and eventually had it published. And that's The Shadow of the Unicorn, The Legacy.
So that was your first
That was my first published book. And so anyways, of course, immediately after that came The Shadow of the Unicorn, The Deception. You know, it's like when you start talking about unicorns, you can't stop.
You start, yeah,
they
just kind of
take on
rolls,
a life of their own. So anyways, at the moment, I happen to be writing the 3rd of it, which is called The Revenge. And in this one, this is a unicorn who's born different. He's got something wrong with him, but he's also gifted, and nobody will accept him. And anyways, because he's so upset, he ends up using his gifts to harm the herd, and who can stop him? But I'll tell you about the first one.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one.
Yeah, let's talk about the first one.
And where did you get the idea from? It was just always there, obviously, right from a small child.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so in the first novel, the unicorns are summoned. This happens 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. So the unicorns are summoned over to the dinosaurs' valley because there's something mysterious going on. And there's this little baby dinosaur named Darius who keeps saying, something terrible is going to happen. Everything's going to change. The plants are going to change. And there's going to be this new creature that walks on 2 legs. And of course, they think it's the Rexus, like the T-Rex. And anyways, what ends up happening is the asteroid hits the Earth, sending the whole Earth into darkness. And it's just really awful, and there's ash everywhere, and they dwindle, and they barely survive. And then in the springtime, little things start shooting up. And then the humans come and discover that they have healing powers in their horns. So anyways, what ends up happening is they find Darius, and Darius teaches them a little trick on how to escape the humans, and it's really good. Darius is just like the Yoda. I love Darius.
That's fabulous. So you obviously really embrace your characters.
Oh, I do indeed.
That's awesome.
Anyways, and in the second book, it happens 60 years into the future, and because they're unicorns, they don't write everything down. So the legacy of Azaria has been all changed by this one great stallion who's kind of a psychopath. And he creates this imaginary being saying that if you don't obey everything I say, Jerish will take away your powers, and, you know, all these bad things will happen to you. So they're really, you know, terrified. Well, our young unicorn Ulysses and his best friend Teo disobey him, and they go down this little path, and they get discovered by the humans again. So anyways, and the nice part about this book is they meet Darius again, only he's really old now. But anyways, yeah, so the first one won an award for Best Fantasy and alternate history, because I'm mixing, you know, a different history that's happened. I mean, that asteroid didn't hit 12,000 years ago, right? The second one has been nominated for an award, and I have a 3rd novel that's going to be released in a few months, and it's called A Town Bewitched. It's a teen novel.
Nice.
And it's about a young girl growing up in the town of Hope, British Columbia. And she's a child prodigy in classical violin. Her best friend is a girl who's been adopted from China into a white family. And these girls have a really hard time fitting in. And then, to make matters worse, Kira's father dies at the beginning. And at the funeral, this strange woman shows up. And she's dressed all wrong for the season, wearing a scarf in August and long red hair, carrying up this beat-up old case, this violin case. And anyways, they don't know who she is, but within a few days, she takes over the entire town, bewitching them with her music. And the only one who doesn't climb aboard is Kira. So anyways,
sounds
it's
exciting.
Great story.
So you are going to have a book signing tomorrow. That's exciting
indeed.
too.
Yes, at Chapters. I'm going to be there from 1 till 4. And yeah, so I hope to see lots and lots of people there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And age group, I would say, it sounds like anybody would love this book.
Well, it's really for 9 to 12-year-olds, but it's kind of about grade 5 level.
Okay,
So
fantastic.
yeah, and by the way, it's not just for girls. You know, people think unicorns, girls. My boys loved it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me.
It's been delightful to have you on the show.